very many greetings. I want you to know that I'm in very good health, as I hope you are in turn. You neglectful man, who have sent me not even one letter. I have sent you socks, 2 pairs of sandals, and 2 pairs of underpants.
As a dozen legions gathered across the Danube, the Dacians withdrew to the mountain fortresses that ringed their capital. The legions prepared to follow. Trajan summoned his officers for a final council of war. The men sacrificed an ox, a sheep, and a pig to the gods. Priests read the entrails for omens. The Romans crossed the Danube in 2 great columns, one led by the emperor himself. Like his men, Trajan too sought glory in battle. The legionaries hacked their way through the first enemy they met, a forest ill-suited for travel, much less for the Roman way of fighting. At dusk, they became builders again. As the Dacian spies watched, the legionaries fortified the ground they would sleep on.
Whenever they invade hostile territory, they rigidly refuse to do battle until they have fortified their camp. This they do not construct haphazardly. If the ground is uneven, it is thoroughly leveled. Then the site is marked out as a rectangle. In the gaps between the towers, they mount spear throwers, catapults, stone throwers, and every type of ordnance, all ready to be discharged. The fortifications completed, the men go to their quarters unit by unit in a quiet and orderly fashion. Nothing whatever is done without orders. All other duties are carried out with attention to discipline and security. Wood, food, and water, as required, being brought in by the units detailed.
At the far end of a long day, the 8 men in Tiberius's squad pitched their tent and prepared a Spartan meal. If they were resourceful, they supplemented this with whatever they could catch. Then most bedded down. The unfortunate few took up their watch, and woe to him who fell asleep. If he were lucky, he would simply be whipped by an officer. If not, he would be stoned to death by his comrades. After many days of slow progress, the 2 long Roman columns, stretched out for 20 miles, met at Tibiscum. Trajan sent his cavalry ahead to find the enemy and flush out ambushes. These horsemen, like the other auxiliaries, the archers and slingers, were recruited from conquered tribes. Only citizens of Rome could serve in a Roman legion. But the prize of citizenship could be won by the foreign-born upon their discharge, if not sooner, for bravery. Near the pass of Tapai, the gateway to Dacia, Trajan's horsemen found the entire Dacian army drawn up. the Emperor gave the order for battle. After weeks of cutting trees and building forts, the legionaries relished the chance to fight. Tiberius went into combat better armored than any soldier of his day. The mail worn by his predecessors had been replaced by the lorica segmentata, a breastplate of metal sheets connected by hooks and straps and conforming to his joints. When he moved, so did his armor, unless rusted by rain. His iron helmet protected his face and neck without obscuring his vision. Tiberius took his position on the battlefield. His unit of 8 formed a squad. 10 such squads formed a century, commanded by a centurion. 6 centuries formed a cohort, and 10 cohorts formed a legion. No such discipline prevailed opposite Tiberius. The Dacians wielded long scythes and made room to use them. Within their horde, each man would fight alone, even to the death. Tiberius might fight heroically, but not singly. He was part of a machine. To the 7 men beside him, he was friend and comrade. To the Emperor Trajan, this squad was like one creature, trained to obey, without delay, without question.
So complete is their submission to their superiors, that in the field the whole army is a single body, so knit together are their ranks.
As the Dacians brandished their weapons and hurled their jeers, Tiberius and his comrades silently advanced. He flung his pilum, his javelin, at the enemy. The neck was long and thin, so that wherever it struck, in wood or in bone, it buckled so no Dacian could fling it back. Then, wielding his gladius, a short sword with a wide blade, Tiberius met his foe. Slashing and thrusting, both sides fought until they could fight no more. Then, by agreement, they rested. Again, they came to blows. So it went, until the Dacians turned and fled into the forest, an obstacle that broke up the Roman formations and the pursuit. The legionaries had won the battle, but not the campaign. They had failed to take the Dacian capital. With winter approaching, Trajan marched his army back to winter quarters below the Danube. En route, Tiberius and his comrades sold their prisoners to the slave traders who followed the army. In the spring of 102 AD, Trajan again crossed the Danube. This time, he sent one column far to the north to attack the enemy capital from behind. Abandoning the field, the Dacians retreated into their strongholds, whose strength would now be tested by a Roman siege. Trajan brought up his artillery, ballista firing arrows, and catapults hurling stones, not to dent the Dacians' battlements, but to clear them. Under the barrage of missiles and the hail from slingers and archers, few Dacians dared show their heads, so few saw what came next.